Hello everyone, this is the second in the segment of Ascent or Bima, obligation or not. And today, I'd like to go with the points of view that say this is not just a means to hear better, but rather it's on principle. And allow me to begin with the words of the Imre Eish. The Imre Eish was Rav Meir Eisenstatter, known as the Maharam Ash. There's two. This is the one that lived a little later, 1780 to 1852. He was one of the first Talmidim of the Chasam Sofer. He was a Rav in various places in Hungary, including Ungvar. If you heard of Rav Menashe Klein, he was from Ungvar. And ultimately, he writes, "Tevavadai leba'im besod Hashem, yesh lem dvarim ramim v'nizgavim l'tam habima ba'emtza, sha'habima romezet ledavar gadol, v'lo la'ashmi'a kol bilvad." Namely, having the bima in the middle is not just to hear better, but there's great elevated things because the bima's in the middle. And what are they? The Chasam Sofer, quoting the Gemara in Yuma, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Bet, says, back in the Beis HaMikdash, you had the shulchan with the lechem hapanim on the north side. You had the menorah on the west side. And where was the mizbeach? The one that was inside, called the mizbach haketoret. Mizbeach memutzav omed ba'emtza. It was exactly in the middle. Based on this, comes along the Chasam Sofer and says, because we see our bima as, and I quote, קוראים פרשת הקורבנות כמו מזבח שמפני כן מסבבים הבימה בחג הסוכות, כמו שסובבו המזבח, ואותו המזבח שעמד בהיכל לפני ארון הקודש, שהוא מזבח מקטר הקטורת, היה עומד באמצע הבית מכוון בין מנורה לשולחן. הבימה שלנו עומדת בפנים כמזבח הפנימי, על כן ראוי להעמידו באמצע בית הכנסת, לדמותו לבית המקדש בכל האפשרי, ואין לשנות במקדש מעט. In a word, our bima is like the mizbeach. And just like the mizbeach was in the middle, inside the kodesh, our shuls inside have the bima in the middle. And indeed, we treat the bima like a mizbeach because we go around it on Sukkot like they used to go around the mizbeach. And as such, it has to be in the middle, not just as a means to hear, but rather to make it like the Mizbeach in our small temples, in our shuls. Not surprising, Reb Betzalel Stern, coming from the same school of thought of the Chasam Sofer, but of course in the 20th century, says that he saw in the Michtav Sofer exactly what the Chasam Sofer, the great Zaidi, already said. The Habima she'alav korin b'Torah hu dugmat mizbach hanechoshet. Not exactly like the Chasam Sofer, a little different. It's like the Mizbeach, but the Mizbeach outside, in the courtyard. Because learning Torah is in place of bringing korbanos, as we quoted many times the Gemara in Menachot Daf Kuf Yud, ki esek HaTorah chashuv kekorban, kol ha'osek b'Torah, ki ilu hikriv, olah, mincha, etc. And as such, since we're reading the Torah from that bima, Mizbach hanachoshet ha'raya omed b'chuvan be'emtza orech ha'azara. So in a word, why do you put the bima in the middle? It's like the Mizbeach in the Beis HaMikdash. That is the position of the Chasam Sofer and his students later. And this was used halacha l'maaseh by Hagaon Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky Zecher Tzadik Livrecha as a rabbi in Toronto. And I'm quoting from the book put out by Art Scroll called Rav Yaakov, The Life and Times of Hagaon Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, written by Yonasan Rosenblum, from page 143. That same cleverness helped prevent one of the local shuls from moving the bima to the front. One of the members of the shul told Rabbi Yaakov that he could prevent the move if he could somehow show that it was contrary to the shul's bylaws. There was nothing in the bylaws about the location of the bima. Reading through them, Rabbi Yaakov noticed that they specified that the shul was to follow the customs set forth in the Luach. And in the Luach for Sukkot, it describes the procedure for encircling the bima during hakafos. Proof that the bima must be located in such a way that the congregation can go around it. The Chavetz Chaim, in his Perush on Chumash in Sefer Bamidbar, comments on the pasuk "V'nasa Ohel Moed Machanei Leviyim b'toch hamachanot," that the holy Ohel Moed was smack in the middle of all the encampment of the Jewish people. Since the Torah is there, צריך האוהל מועד להיות תמיד בתוך המחנות, באמצע, כמו שהבימה באמצע בית הכנסת. Just like the Torah was in the middle of their encampment, when we go to shul and camp around, the bima has to be in the middle, and upon which we read the Torah. And just like the Eitz HaChaim in Gan Eden was in the middle, and since we call Torah Eitz Chaim Him Lamachazikim Ba, we also have to put it in the middle. The Divrei Yirmiyahu, which is a perush on the Rambam, again from the world of Hungary, Rav Yirmiyahu Lav, 1811 to 1874. He ultimately also functioned in the Hungarian communities. Got smicha from the Maharam Bennett, said that one of the reasons why we put the bima in the middle is Isha diglo ba'otot leveit avot, that exact context of the Chafetz Chaim. Mineged saviv lo'ol moed yachanu, ine kol Yisrael yachanu sviv im diglahem lo'ol moed asher shama Torah. And the Minchas Yitzchak, Rav Yitzchak Weiss, in our generation, quotes the Divrei Yirmiyah and says, B'sha'at HaKriyah, kedugmat kol Yisrael asher yachanu saviv diglahem lo'ol moed. And he quoted the Mahari Asad, who also said this. So it's either like the Mizbeach, or it's like the encampment of the Jews in the desert. The Minchas Yitzchak brings a third reason, and that is, based on the Gemara in Menachot, that all the candles of the menorah, mitzadedim pneihem klapei ner emtzai, would face the middle. Amar Rav Natan, mikan she'emtzai meshubach. The middle is the most praiseworthy. So based on these reasons, it's not just to hear, but rather they're on principle reasons. Either it's like the Mizbeach outside, or the Mizbeach inside, or it's like the Jewish people encampment in the desert, or we want it in the middle because it's praiseworthy. Whatever it might be, you can understand the Chasam Sofer coming out and saying that even if a shul says that it's nicer for it to be in the front, still it has to be in the middle because it's on principle. The shul in Alexandria was huge. Maybe it would have been easier to have the bima in the front with those flags that they used to wave to tell people when to say Amen. He says, they still put it in the middle. Why? Because that is the on-principle place you must put it. In addition to which, he says, in Bayit Sheni, which is bigger than Bayit Rishon, they didn't change the place. They were still in the middle, not to mention the Chasam Sofer's famous rule, Chadash asur min haTorah, we don't change things. Rabbi Tzolstern indeed says, ומזבח הנחושת היה עומד מכוון בעשר, לפי זה ראוי לכתחילה לדקדק שתי הבימה באמצע בית הכנסת בדקדוק. Namely, even if it's more feasible, the people should hear from the front or the back, it makes no difference. If it's like the Mizbeach, it has to be right in the middle. The Chafetz Chaim would say, if it's like the encampment of the Jewish people, it must be in the middle, like Olam Moed was. The Minchas Yitzchak says, if we think the middle is praiseworthy, then again, it must be in the middle. Unlike the Kesef Mishnah we quoted last time that said, well, if it's a small shul, maybe not. These particular points of view say it's on principle, always in the middle. Hey!